Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into a conversation that, let's be honest, we all kind of secretly avoid. We're talking about young love, and more importantly, the massive, life-altering choices that come packaged with it. You know, we've all seen people hit those brutal potholes on the road of life. Well, today we're pulling out the map so you don't have to hit them yourself.
To do that, here's our roadmap for This Explainer. We're going to start with the unspoken conversation, then look at the 5 traps of young love. After that, we'll explore 2 timelines side by side, highlight what I call the information advantage, break down the 5 questions you absolutely need to ask, and finally, look at building your life. Basically, we're mapping out how to sequence adulthood so that love and life actually strengthen each other, rather than fighting for survival.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the unspoken conversation. The big takeaway here is that love is absolutely not a substitute for life planning.
So falling in love, having kids, those are beautiful things. But out here in the real world, entering adulthood without a solid plan leaves you with a tiny, tiny margin for error. Academics actually have a name for this. They call it premature life foreclosure. It's really just a fancy way of saying that one early, rushed decision can permanently close off educational, economic, or developmental doors that otherwise would have stayed wide open for you. The real danger here is that the overwhelming, completely all-consuming rush of first attachment hits exactly when your long-term judgment is still developing. I mean, you're literally figuring out who you are while simultaneously making choices that could lock you out of future opportunities forever.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 5 traps of young love. These are the crucial decisions that will realistically affect your next 20 to 30 years.
Trap number 1 is mistaking your first love for a finished life plan. You really have to give love the time to survive reality. Look, first love is undeniably powerful, right? But listen, you can love someone intensely and still look at them and say, hey, I need to finish school. You can love them with all your heart and say, I need to get my qualifications and get my money right first. Hitting pause to build your life doesn't make the love any less real. In fact, giving it time is exactly how you figure out if that love is actually strong enough to survive the brutal realities of everyday life.
Trap number 2 comes down to this really powerful truth. Managing is just not the same thing as thriving. Especially in places like the Caribbean, we hear all these stories about how our grandparents just scrape by, improvising with super tight finances. But raising a child shouldn't just be an exercise in basic survival. A baby needs food, secure housing, healthcare, education. You have to deliberately build those conditions so they can actually thrive. Relying on survival mode just turns early parenthood into a severe economic crisis.
Moving on to trap 3, forgetting that men become young fathers too. Fatherhood is a life responsibility. Historically, society has kind of given young guys an easier exit, right? Leaving the heavy lifting, the emotional, educational, and everyday childcare burden entirely on the mother. Well, this trap challenges young men directly. If you're physically capable of creating a child, ask yourself, are you actually ready to be a father? What is your presence literally going to contribute to that child's life? Because it's about showing up emotionally and financially every single day.
That leads right into trap 4. Sacrificing your education for a relationship drastically limits your future options. Honestly, this is one of the most expensive mistakes you could ever make. And hey, we're not just talking about a 4-year university degree here. This means trades, certifications, vocational training, literally anything that gives you a solid, income-producing skill. Education gives you options. Abandoning it not just kills your choices. Sure, people go back to school later in life. Absolutely. But why would you deliberately make the road 10 times harder for yourself when you've already got kids in the picture?
And finally, trap 5, which is probably the biggest delusion out there. It's assuming that love is going to magically solve logistical problems that actually require hard planning. We kind of expect love to be this magic wand, right? Like it's going to magically conjure up money, secure an apartment, or suddenly organize childcare. But newsflash, love doesn't do those things. Robust life planning does. Before you even think about building a family, you have to ask the hard logistical questions about jobs, living situations, and legal rights. Love is absolutely the foundation for sure, but the planning, that's the actual house.
So let's make this concrete in Section 3. 2 paths, 2 timelines. We're going to look at the case of a couple named Aisha and Daniel.
Let's look at the rushed path first. Aisha and Daniel meet at 17. They are wildly in love and they have huge dreams. But an unexpected pregnancy at 19 just halts everything. Fast forward to age 20 and beyond, they have to stop their studies because childcare is just too difficult. They take whatever low-paying work they can possibly find, and severe economic stress sets in. They do still love each other, but man, the relationship is just tired.
Decisions that felt incredibly romantic at 17 rapidly turned into a highly stressful economic crisis by 20.
Now, let's rewind. Let's look at the planned path for that exact same couple. Aisha and Daniel still fall deeply in love at 17, but at 19, instead of rushing, they make a conscious choice. They say, you know what? Let's give ourselves 3 years to just build. Fast forward to age 22 and beyond, Aisha completes her qualification, Daniel finishes his trade, they save up some money, and then they decide they're ready for children. They didn't love each other any less in this scenario, not at all. They simply sequenced their lives differently.
The difference between these two paths is literally night and day. Taking just 3 years to figure out reproductive health, map out legal responsibilities, and focus on career development completely changes the entire dynamic. It transforms a relationship from this exhausting daily struggle for economic survival into a thriving, stable partnership.
Okay, let's move to Section 4, the information advantage, or learning by researching.
Now, obviously, we can't ignore real structural issues out there, like poverty, unequal opportunities, and the historical effects of colonialism. But this current generation has an absolute superpower. You see, our parents had to learn by living, but we can learn by living and researching. Today, we've got the internet, free educational resources, online courses, and the shared experiences of people all over the globe right at our fingertips. Because we have this unparalleled access, we have a profound responsibility to actually research life-altering decisions before we make them. You just don't have to figure it out the hard way anymore.
Let's bring it all together in Section 5, Build Your Life First. This is the blueprint. Before you lock in your future, you need to sit down and ask yourself these 5 brutal but absolutely necessary questions. 1. What happens to my education? 2. What happens to my earning capacity? 3. What if this relationship ends? 4. What responsibilities will we both actually carry? And 5, perhaps the most crucial one, am I building a life or just a relationship? These are powerful questions you need to sit with. Ideally, a relationship should become a beautiful part of your life's architecture, like a room in a house, so to speak, but it shouldn't be the entire structure itself.
I want to speak directly to the young women listening right now. You are a person with a mind, a talent, and a massive future. Please don't measure your worth simply by whether somebody chooses you. Being someone's girlfriend or wife is not your entire identity. You have this immense capacity to earn, create, and lead. If you do choose motherhood, it should be a beautiful addition to an already rich, full life, not some eraser that wipes away the woman you were becoming.
And for the young men listening, presence is a verb. It's a responsibility. This is a challenge to decouple your physical ability from true readiness for fatherhood. Being biologically able to father a child is entirely different from being ready to actually raise one. True fatherhood requires emotional consistency, financial stability, and literally showing up every single day. Your future child deserves a father who understands that being present is the ultimate responsibility.
The overarching point of everything we've talked about today is perfectly captured in this idea. You simply have to stop believing that love requires you to abandon yourself. You don't have to reject love or marriage or family. No way. But true intergenerational progress means doing the hard work first. Build the person, build the education, build the income, build the emotional maturity. If you do that, your future family doesn't have to inherit all the struggles of the generation that came before it.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question I want you to reflect on. Who are you becoming outside of this relationship? Build your own foundation first, because learning from someone else's timeline is infinitely cheaper than paying for the lesson with your own future. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and start building.